So if you see the epithelium here, this is the outermost layer of the cornea, and the next it is made up of 5 to 6 layers of the epithelium, which are very closely attached to one another. So this close attachment of one another will help the uh, and close bonding of these cells will help the outer tears not penetrating into the stromal layer, right? The next layers. So outerwards, the tears which are present on the outer surface of this cornea will not enter inside due to this close packing of this epithelial membrane, and then the Bowman's layer, right? So the Bowman's layer is also a thick layer which is very strong, um, a little strong than the epithelial layer, and then comes the stromal layer. The stromal layer consists of lamella which are arranged parallel to one another, and they are more transparent. They don't have any vasculature in it, or the stroma consists of the 96%, around 90 to 96% of the cornea. So this is the most important part of the cornea, and this is the most enlarged part of the cornea also, right? This entire stroma is made up of lamella which are transparent and they are closely attached to one another. After this lamella is the Descemet's membrane, right? So this Descemet's membrane is nothing but these lamella become hard and hard to some extent, and they become most harder and form into a Descemet's membrane. That's all. So these lamella, which attach to one another, become harder and thicken, and they become the Descemet's membrane, the innermost layers of this trauma, right? And the innermost layer after the Descemet membrane is the endothelium membrane. So this endothelium is also a single layer of the cells which are present on the inner surface of this lamella, this cornea, right? So if you see, I did not mention any types of cells. The superficial layer is made up of epithelial cells only. That's all, and the remaining cells are not don't have any other cells. Like in the case of conjunctiva, the stromal layer is containing of so many different types of cells, like the lysozymes or the macrophages. Those cells will be present in the conjunctiva, or some types of glands are also present in the conjunctiva. But in this cornea, we don't find any such type of cells. It is purely made up of lamella. That's all, right? And the remaining structure present just below this what is this Descemet membrane is also made up of a single layer of cells. That's all. And you'll have a doubt that how these cells will survive. What is the nutrition getting? How these cells will get nutrition, right? So this is a typical example of the only part in the body which is not supplied with blood vessels is the cornea, right? So there are no blood vessels in the stromal layer also. The most important and the most large layer of this cornea is the stromal layer, and there are no blood vessels present in the stromal layer. How does this will survive? And how all these cells will be breathing and doing their activities, right? So for this, the endothelial membrane here is able to perfuse the contents of the nutrition from the aqueous humor, right? If you see, I'll show you here. So see here, in this structure you can see, you will be able to see that the innermost layer is surrounded with the aqueous humor, anterior chamber of the aqueous humor, right? So this aqueous humor is containing nutrients. These nutrients are supplied from this aqueous chamber and going into this Descemet membrane, and also going into the stromal layer also. And the outer epithelial and the Bowman's membrane are supplied by the tear filling, right? So whenever you are closed and open, where you are closing the lids and opening the lids, a tear will be formed on the outer surface of the cornea, right? So the nutrients present in this tear film will be supplying to this epithelium and the Bowman's layer, right? And the oxygen required for these epithelial cells and this Bowman's layer are directly absorbed from the atmosphere itself. So the Bowman's membrane is able to the Bowman's membrane epithelium are able to gain the oxygen from the atmosphere, right? So that is a typicalness of this cornea. And you can see here if they are the different layers are colored differently, you can see the different things here. The anterior surface, the first layer will see here is the tear film here. The blue layer is the tear film. Behind that is the epithelial membrane, and then is the Bowman's membrane, and then comes the stroma, which is thickening, and uh, at the end it becomes the descendant membrane. Sometimes you can also see in old people, you can also see a pre-descendant membrane, which is nothing but the descendant membrane in advance, right? So here the thickening is more, and here the thickening is most, right? The next layer will be the endothelium, right? So that's about this different structures. So what is necessary for the cornea to be healthy, right? For considering the cornea to be healthy, it should contain two properties. One is the transparency. The next one is protection of its curvature, right? So the cornea, if you see here in this picture, uh, the cornea is curved, right? It is curved. So this curvature should be maintained. It should not become flat or it should not become over curved, right? So maintaining this curvature is this curvature is maintained by the descendant membrane, which is the strongest layer, right? This descendant membrane will become stiff and will become retain the shape of this curvature. If the shape of the curvature is lost and the cornea becomes flattened, it is called as cornea plan. But what is the defect if the cornea becomes flat? As we learned earlier, so light falls on this cornea and is become diverged, right? As it is an convex glass, biconvex, sorry, concave or convex glass lens. It is what is happening? The light is converged by this cornea. So if this becomes flat, the light will not be converged, right? So that is the defect. It leads to aberrations in vision. So that is about this cornea. And what happens if the cornea becomes the transparency of the cornea is lost, right? How it is lost? If there is an infection to this corneal epithelial layer or the stromal layer, or the bacteria happens to go into the stroma layer and deposit, and the surrounding layer of this bacteria, the bacteria will be surrounded with these neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, and then they will be attacking this bacteria. This inflammatory process, whenever it is happening, the transparency of this cornea will be lost, right? So it leads to haziness in the vision. So, what are the different things which are causing corneal opacities, or corneal what do you say, this transparency disturbances? We'll see one by one. And the first thing we'll see are the different congenital anomalies of the cornea, right? So the first you need for first you need to know that cornea is a structure which doesn't grow through the entire life cycle, right? Usually it grows from birth to 2 years only, but that too very small proportion of it will grow, right? This is to adjust the size of the eye. That's all. So by birth, at birth, the cornea will have a diameter of 10 to 11 mm, right? Usually it will have a size of uh, the horizontal diameter will be of 11 to 12 mm, right? And the vertical will be around 10 mm, right? So there will be a minor difference between the vertical and the horizontal one at this birth, but after birth it will be as uniform or somewhat elliptical. The outer surface will be somewhat elliptical, but the inner surface will be rounded only. The inner surface of the cornea will have a size of around 11.7 mm all the way, right? So if this corneal membrane is large, it is called as megalocornea, megalocornea. So here, if you see, the cornea is more than 11.7 mm at birth only. So if you see here, how much it is? It is around 14 mm. So this size is called as megalocornea. Right? This megalocornea may also happen due to some infections or intraocular pressure raise. But what happens here is the size of the cornea will not change. The diameter of the cornea will not change, but the bulging will increase in case of infections or in case of intraocular pressure raise, right? But the size of the cornea and the diameter of the cornea increased means it is a congenital defect. And if it is more than 11.7 mm at birth, it is considered as a megalocornea, right? This is another example of the microcornea where the cornea size is small. So it also happens during birth or sometimes it may be acquired due to haziness of this surrounding structures, right? Then the next thing we learn today is the corneal ulcerations. So depends upon the different types of infections onto the cornea. There may be different hazinesses present, right? So the first thing we learn is the corneal ulcer. So inflammation may happen onto the cornea at any place. Usually the cornea is the outermost layer, so it is most exposed to the atmosphere. After it is exposed to the atmosphere, if anything part falls onto the cornea, it is wiped out by the tear film. If it is not wiped out, or if the bacteria which is present in that debris is strong enough and it will penetrate into the cornea, right? Usually the cornea outer layer is well organized with thick epithelial cells closely attached to one another, right? So it will not allow any particles to pass into it, even water also. But sometimes some organisms may able to directly go into the cornea. So those organisms are the Neisseria gonorrhea, and diphtheria. Those organisms, which are very strong and virulent organisms, right? So they may directly go into the cornea, or sometimes there may be abrasion or some disturbance or some injury to the corneal layer. This may be due to some dust particle in the eye, or foreign object which may be placed in the eye, or the contact lenses which are causing disturbance to the eye, or xerophthalmia which is due to vitamin A deficiency, or tear deficiencies or tear film deficiency due to improper functioning of these lacrimal glands, or these eyelashes, which are these eyelashes which are growing inwards, called as entropion. So these eyelashes are continuously disturbing the tear filling which are formed on the cornea. So these structures, or these are the different things which are causing or which are predisposing to a corneal infection, right? Once the cornea is infected, or once the bacteria is able to go into the cornea due to an injured part or directly by these Neisseria or these diphtheриal microorganisms, they are able to destroy the basement layers, the basement layer, the Bowman's layer. Sorry. So they are able to destroy the epithelial layer and the Bowman's layer, and then go into the stroma, right? So it is this. Usually, a bacteria may not be able to go after the descendant membrane unless it is most virulent bacteria, or unless the organism, or we, or the patient is very immune suppressed, right? So these are the two conditions where the ulcer may go deep into the descendant membrane also. Right? If you happen to see here in this picture, you can see a white haziness present in this down lower lateral part. So I'll able to draw it right here. See, so this is the white hazy part, and this is nothing but a corneal ulcer. So this is the starting stage of the corneal ulcer, right? So then we'll able to discuss the different infections of this cornea under different headings like ulcerative keratitis, non-ulcerative keratitis, allergic keratitis, and and other different things. So ulcerative keratitis can be depends upon the location: central, peripheral ulcer, corneal ulcer, central corneal ulcer. These are the different things, right? And sometimes there may be um, depth of the ulcer may also vary, and different names may be given to that. Superficial corneal ulcer, deep corneal ulcer, perforated corneal ulcer. So superficial, deep, and then the descendant membrane. Once the descendant membrane is ruptured, it leads to perforation, complete perforation, right? So sometimes there may not be an ulcer. A diffuse infection on the cornea may be present, that only the epithelial layer or the Bowman's membrane is infected, and most of these neutrophils and basophils will come and will be circulating in this region only. So it is called as non-ulcerative keratitis. So it may be also diffuse or only punctate. So this punctate keratitis can be seen in what? Flectenlar conjunctivitis, where you can see punctate keratitis. Only small areas of the cornea will be affected with this. Uh, as I already told, small areas are affected, and it is due to virus, and it is due to allergic or sometimes it may be due to allergic also, or viral also. So then no scarring will be formed, and superficial, if only the superficial layer of the cornea is damaged, after it is healed, no scarring is formed. It is only the scarring formed only when the stromal layer is affected. After the stroma is affected, then scarring will be formed. Right? Sometimes it may be suppurative or non-suppurative also. So it depends upon etiological factors. The corneal infections can be of bacterial, viral, fungal, chlamydial, allergic, and toxic. Right? Sometimes it may be traumatic also. So now we'll discuss about first one is the infective keratitis or due to bacterial keratitis. So what are the different things present in infective keratitis? What are the different clinical features present in corneal, sorry, bacterial corneal ulcer or infective keratitis, right? So as the term indicates, it is due to some bacteria, and when the bacteria is infected, lot of pus will be present. So these are the two cardinal symptoms. To different, it is bacterial keratitis. So what are the different things you see in bacterial keratitis? Epithelial damage will be present due to some predisposing factor, like I already told entropion or some injury to the cornea or any other thing. Right after the epithelium is damaged or it is dried due to atmospheric dryness or xerosis, uh, then what happens? The bacteria will able to go into the epithelial membrane, and slowly it is eating away the epithelial membrane. After the eating away starts, it leads to necrosis of this superficial epithelial membrane. Once the necrosis is started, then it leads to ulceration. That means slowing. That necrosis will lead to slowing of this cornea. So I'll show you that. So these are the different. So you see here, the superficial layer, the first figure A shows you the infection is started here, and then these surrounding white dots are nothing but neutrophils and eosinophils which are accumulated in this region, and they are trying to desiccate or kill these bacteria or the infection. And later, what happens? Necrosis starts. The central part will become died. The central part necrosis will start, and slowly this may progress. This progress will depend on the virulence of this bacteria and the immune system of the host. Right? After it is progressed to some extent, after some extent, there will be a neutralizing point where the host defense mechanism is able to stop the protrusion of this ulcer. Then it is called as stage of regression, and then healing stage. So these are the four stages. The first stage is called as proliferative phase or the stage of initiation. Infiltration, the progressive infiltration stage, the first stage. The second stage is called as the active ulceration stage, where the ulcer is formed and it is progressed. Then the third stage, where there is an standstill point between the bacterial virulence and the host immune system appears. Then it is called as stage of regression. And then the final stage of healing, which is also called as stage of cicatrization. Right? So these are the four stages you can see during an corneal ulcer formation. Right? So in stage of ulceration or stage of progressive infiltration, lot of macrophages or neutrophils will be deposited into this region. So uh, once this deposition is happening, it leads to haziness. So that is the first stage where you see haziness in the cornea. Then ulceration, a part of it is gone, and then it is replaced again. But if once it is replaced completely, then there may be minor scarring pressure. So if only the superficial layers are damaged, then no scar will be present. Only the epithelial layer is damaged, no scar will be present. If a superficial stroma is also affected, a mild scar may be present. If the stroma is much affected, it is deep enough, then there will be larger scars present. So those are the different things. And you see here in these pictures, in this picture you can see here, the ulcer is formed, and this is the starting stage, the progressive stage, where lot of yellowish discoloration is seen. This is nothing but the pus cells which are coming on to the area of necrosis, or which are trying to protect this ulcer to go to stop here, right? This is the stage of the first stage, or the stage of what we say, infiltration stage. So this is a stage. This is called as the hypopyon. So this is an important term you need to learn in case of corneal ulcer or corneal infection. So this entire lower part is filled with nothing but pus cells. See here. So usual corneal layer is this, right? This is the usual corneal layer, corneal surrounding, and here it is filled with pus cells. So remember, these pus cells are not present in the cornea. They are present in the anterior chamber, that is behind the cornea, right? They are present behind the cornea in the anterior chamber of the aqueous humor, and these are nothing but pus cells which are coming from the iris and the surrounding ciliary body system. Why they are coming? So once the cornea is affected, it should be protected from outside and inside also, right? The outer epithelium is trying to protect by gaining these neutrophils and basophils from the surroundings and from the tear film, right? But inside it is also trying to protect by the ciliary mechanism. The ciliary body and the iris are trying to protect it from inside. What are they doing? They are also producing neutrophils and basophils, which are coming in, neutrophils and macrophages, which are coming and falling onto the uh, this what you say, the lens, inner side of the cornea. So which is the endothelial layer, right? As it is, these particles are heavier, right? So as these particles are heavier, they are trying to fall out, and they'll fall and form as a debris at the bottom layer, right? This accumulation of the pus cells inside the anterior chamber, lower part of the anterior chamber, is called the hypopyon, right? This reflex action of the ciliary body and the ciliary mechanism and the iris is happened due to the hormones produced, hormones produced or released by these bacteria, right? These bacteria are releasing some certain hormones and toxins, which are stimulating the mechanism also present in the iris and the ciliary body also, right? So this is also a part of defense mechanism. So the next thing we learn today is the corneal ulcer, and if you see here in this schematic example, the epithelium is damaged, the stroma is damaged, but the Descemet's membrane is not damaged, right? So this is the importance, and if this Descemet membrane is not damaged, it will not be able to uh, cause much harm. But if the Descemet membrane is also thin, it leads to what you call it as descemetocele. Descemetocele. What is descemetocele? It is nothing but the protrusion of the Descemet membrane into the cornea, right? So this is a descemetocele, example of a descemetocele, right? So here the ulcer happens in this outer part. So ulcer happens here, and this ulcer is eroding completely this all this trauma layer also. Only the Descemet membrane is left, and this Descemet membrane is very thin, right? It is strong, but it is thin, right? As it is thin, it is protruded by this aqueous humor and the vitreous humor. So the intraocular pressure is protruding or pushing this Descemet membrane, and it leads to a protrusion like this. This protrusion is nothing but descemetocele. Descemetocele. right? Once a descemetocele is formed, then it is very dangerous because a single cough may lead to this descemetocele rupture and leads to rupture of this ulcer or perforation of the cornea, complete perforation of the cornea. This cornea is completely perforated and the aqueous humor leaks out. Once the aqueous humor leaks out, what happens? The remaining structure is the iris and the lens. The diaphragm made by the iris and the lens. This iris and lens will form a plugging like structure, which further will stop the uh, prolapse of this iris towards the outwards, right? That's it. So that's about the ulcer and the different stages of corneal ulcer. And if there is an hypopyon present, then it is called as hypopyon with a corneal ulcer. If there is no hypopyon, it is called as corneal ulcer without a hypopyon. So you remember that hypopyon is always a sterile accumulation of pus. No bacteria will be present in a hypopyon. Only sterile pus cells or sterile neurophages and macrophages will be present in hypopyon. Right? And once the infection is the term of infection is completely over and the cornea is started healing, then this hypopyon will be, the cells present in hypopyon will be reabsorbed back and it will become clear again, right? So that's all about today's class. Any doubts in different types of ulcers and anything? So in tomorrow's class we'll learn about the different corneal ulcers